The functional components of the cranial nerves. This is where most students get stuck. Not at the nerves themselves, but at the words that are used to describe them. Somatic, visceral, afferent, efferent, special, general. If these words are not first understood, then abbreviations like GVE, GSE, SSA, SVA will feel like random letters. So in this episode, we're going to build the meaning first, and then we'll compress the meaning of those words into the abbreviations. That order matters. So meaning first, abbreviation second. The nervous system does two broad things. It receives information and it sends commands. So when information travels from the body to the central nervous system, that is sensory information. And when commands come from the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord, to the rest of the body, that is the motor function. Body to CNS, okay? That gives us sensory. That is the sensory aspect. And then from CNS, commands from CNS to the body, that is motor. The technical words are afferent and efferent. So when the body sends information to the central nervous system, that is afferent. When commands come from the central nervous system to the rest of the body, that is efferent. So afferent receives, efferent sends. And this is with respect to the central nervous system. Afferent comes to the central nervous system, that is sensory. Efferent leaves nervous system to the rest of the body, and that is motor. Afferent arrives, all right? Efferent exits. That is the simplest way to remember it. So from now on, sensory is afferent, motor is efferent. Do not make it any more complex than that. So when you hear afferent, think of sensations. When you hear efferent, think of motor commands. We come to the next pair of words, somatic and visceral. Somatic refers to the body wall. So think skin, okay, the outer part, skin, muscles, and joints. That refers to somatic. Visceral, internal organs, smooth muscle, and glands. So think heart, lungs, okay, smooth muscle, glands. That is visceral. Somatic equals the body wall, all right? And the body wall is made up of the skin and muscles and joints. Then visceral refers to organs and glands. Organs and glands. So begin to think, if you hear somatic, then that cranial nerve is supplying muscles, joints, skin. If you hear visceral, that cranial nerve is supplying internal organs or glands or smooth muscle. This distinction is very crucial because cranial nerves do not only supply muscles, they supply also glands, smooth muscle, special sense structures, internal organs. So the next time you hear the word visceral, don't panic. Ask yourself, am I dealing with internal organs, special sense structures, glands? If the answer is yes, then you are in visceral territory. Now we come to the last pair, general versus special. Now this is where things can feel a bit slippery, but I'm going to break it down for you. General means a function that is widely distributed in the body. So it is not limited to only a specialized structure or organ. For example, touch, all right? Temperature. What else? Pain. And general sensation. So these are not sensations that are limited to only a particular part of the body, and hence we use the term general, okay? So that is what general refers to. They are not limited to highly specialized structures. They are widespread. Pain is not limited to the face, the foot, the knee, the leg. They can have pain. Touch, temperature, okay? That is general. Special means highly specialized senses that are limited or found only in the head region, head and neck region. That is special because they are generated or derived from highly specialized structures. So example is vision. Okay, vision in the body is limited to only one structure, the eyeball. The other thing will be hearing, balance, taste, and finally smell. So I hope you're already getting a sense of where this is going, okay? So when you hear special, you think of these specialized sensations that are limited to only highly specialized structures. Now, mind you, special does not mean more important. It only means highly specialized. It can only be felt, or senses that can only be generated from a specific structure that is designed for that. So when you think of smell, only the olfactory mucosa in the nasal cavity can do that. When you think of balance, only the vestibular apparatus can do that. And that is the difference between general and special. Now, the system starts to come alive. Previously, the words were separate: sensory, motor, special, general. Now we're going to combine them. And if you can classify vision, taste, gland secretion, and tongue movement, the rest becomes easy. Now, do not worry about abbreviations yet. Let's reason it out first. So now we're going to look at vision. First question, is vision sensory or motor? It's sensory. Great. Information is coming from the retina to the brain. And so that makes it what? Afferent. Afferent. That's vision. The next question is it general or special? It's special. Vision is a special sensation. It's special. Then the last question is it somatic or visceral? Now, vision in the general classification of cranial nerves is considered to be somatic. And the reason is because the sensation is coming from outside the body to the retina, okay? There are also other reasons, but we'll not go into that. So vision is somatic, it is special, it is afferent. I hope it's becoming clearer to you now. So let's not go into abbreviations yet, but you can already see that vision is what? SSA. Okay, let's take another example. Say taste. Question 1, is taste motor or sensory? Sensory. So sensory, and because information is going from the mucosa of the tongue to the brain, the central nervous system, it will be afferent. Then the second question, is it general or special? Taste is special. And the last question, is it visceral or somatic? Taste is visceral. Why visceral? Because taste is associated with the mucosa and the sensory system of the oral cavity and the pharynx. So visceral. Therefore, taste is special, it is visceral, and it is afferent. So now take a gland. Example, salivary gland. Okay? So salivary gland. So first question, is gland secretion motor or sensory? It is motor because the nervous system is sending an output to the gland. So it is motor. And sense is receiving an output. It's an output from the central nervous system to the gland. It's efferent. Then we come to the next question. Is it somatic or visceral? So gland belong to the visceral aspect of the nervous system. So it is visceral, or belongs to the autonomic aspect. Okay? Then the third question, is it special or general? Gland secretion will be general because the function is not limited to only a special kind of cell. We have glands all over the body. So that will be general. So you see, gland secretion is general, it is visceral, and it is efferent, okay? And usually, this is the parasympathetic supply. So you see GVE, parasympathetic. So that's gland secretion. Let's take another example. Tongue movement. Okay, so movement of the tongue. Is it motor? Is it sensory? It's motor. Great. So the brain is sending commands to the tongue, and so that will be efferent. Is it somatic or visceral? It's somatic because it contains, the movement is effected by skeletal muscles. And remember, we said somatic refers to skeletal muscles and the body wall. So it is somatic. Then we come to the next question. Is it general? Is it special? Muscle movement is general, right? Because it is not specialized to any specific, highly specialized structure. Skeletal muscles are all over the body. So tongue movement will be general, somatic, and also efferent. Okay, so general, somatic, efferent, tongue movement. So now we can bring the abbreviations together. The examples we used were vision, taste, gland secretion, tongue movement. So the first one was special, somatic, that was vision. Afferent. All right, so that is SSA. That was vision. The second one we talked about was taste, also special, but that one is visceral and also afferent. So we had SVA. And then we came to gland secretion, and we said it is general and it is visceral because it's coming from glands. And it is efferent, it is motor, it's receiving output. So GVE. So parasympathetic fibers send motor output to the glands. And then we did the last one, which was tongue movement. And we said that tongue is, movement is general. It's general, it's somatic because it's skeletal muscles, and it is efferent. So GSE. So you see, now the abbreviations and the letters are no longer random. They are compressed meaning, and each letter tells you something. So G tells you that it's general, okay? S, special. V, visceral. Another S is somatic, okay? And then we have efferent and afferent. So E and A. So when you see the functional components of a cranial nerve, do not memorize the letters. Decode them first. And that is the shift that will make things easier for you to remember and apply. Now we can reveal the full map. There are 7 functional components of the cranial nerves. So 7 functional components of the cranial nerves. 3 of them are motor and 4 of them are sensory. So motor and sensory. So 4 sensory, 3 motor. Now let us focus on the motor. And we've already gone through some of the examples. So the first one is general, somatic, efferent. General, somatic, efferent. And then the second one is general, visceral, efferent. The last one is a special, visceral, efferent. So these are the 3 motor functional components we have. So now let's translate them. General somatic efferent. That means motor supply to ordinary skeletal muscles. So ordinary skeletal muscles like the eye muscles and tongue muscles. And you will understand pretty soon why I use the word ordinary skeletal muscles. And then general visceral efferent, that is parasympathetic supply to glands, smooth muscle, visceral organs, pupillary constrictor for also. So parasympathetic to glands, pupil constriction, and visceral organs. Visceral organs. So these are general visceral efferent, parasympathetic motor supply. And then we come to the third one, which is the special visceral efferents. Now, the special visceral efferents supplies muscles, skeletal muscles that are derived from branchial motor structures. So the pharyngeal arches. The pharyngeal arches are embryological structures that contribute to the development of the face. And so the skeletal muscles derived from these structures are supplied by special visceral efferents. And this includes muscles of mastication, facial expression, all right, muscles of the pharynx, the larynx, okay, the palate, etc. These structures are all derived from the pharyngeal arches, and these are their nerve supply. So cranial nerves that supply eye muscles, tongue muscles will have general somatic efferent. Cranial nerves that gives parasympathetic to glands, the pupil constriction, visceral organs. So you can already start figuring out which of the cranial nerves contain these components. I'm sure you can already tell. Muscles of mastication, facial expression, okay? And muscles of the pharynx, muscles of the larynx. Can you remember which cranial nerve supplies the pharynx? Do you remember from our first episode? All right, we'll get to it pretty soon. And now to the sensory side. And there are 4 of them as previously mentioned. And we're going to have the general somatic afferent. Remember, afferent means information coming to the central nervous system. So general somatic afferent, we're going to have general visceral afferent, the third one, now we're going to the specials. So special somatic, afferent, okay, and then special visceral afferent. Four sensory functional components. And we're going to break it down. Now let's break down the sensory functional components. Start with general somatic afferent. So general somatic, that means non-specialized sensations. So sensations like touch, pain, and temperature. So these are the general sensations to the face and the neck. General somatic afferent, pain and temperature. The next one is general visceral afferent. That means sensations coming from viscera. Viscera like the carotid body, pharynx, the larynx. So general visceral afferent, that is visceral sensation. So that means sensations like touch, pain, temperature coming from the viscera of the head and neck. Special somatic. So special somatic senses. These include hearing, vision, and balance. And we talked about the fact that hearing and vision and balance, the sensation is coming from outside, okay? They're coming from outside the body. And so we consider them as somatic, like hearing. So the sound is coming from outside. There's no direct contact between the source of the stimuli and the structure. And that's why we call it like it's coming from outside the body. And so we consider them to be somatic. The next one is the special visceral afferent. So think about it. We said somatic, the stimuli is coming from outside. And so the visceral one will be special sensation where the interaction of the stimuli and the receptor is direct. They are coming into contact. And what are those? Taste and smell. Taste and smell. So one of the ways you can organize this is to think about what are all the sensory information around the head and neck. Pain, temperature, touch, okay? And then hearing, vision, balance, smell. And then the sensations, the normal sensations, general sensations coming from the viscera. These are the sensory information around the head and the neck region, okay? And then you can break it down like we have done over here. So this is the map. Everything we've been discussing so far was leading to these two tables, the motor side and the sensory side. Not so you can memorize some abbreviations, but to understand that the abbreviation is just a compact form of specific jobs or functions for the cranial nerves. And once you see this pattern, the list stops feeling arbitrary. Now, pause for a moment. Before I show you the full application to each cranial nerve, I want you to test yourself. Try classifying vision. What is the functional component that vision entails? So think about it. Vision is a special sensation. Once it's a sensation, it's afferent. So special, afferent, okay? And what did we say? Is it visceral or somatic? We said it's somatic. So vision equals special, somatic, afferent. How about taste? Taste is a special sensation, right? Taste is a special sensation. So S. Is it visceral or somatic? It's visceral. So V and A, of course, is afferent. It's a sensation. How about gland secretion? So gland secretion. Can you work that out? If you remember, glands are part of the autonomic nervous system, specifically parasympathetic, and they are general. So gland is general. But glands are visceral structures and parasympathetic is motor, so GVE. Can we try another one? How about tongue movement? Okay. Can you do that? Tongue movement, classify what it is. First of all, it is skeletal muscles, ordinary skeletal muscles, okay? Moving the tongue. So that will be general, okay? So tongue movement will be general. Is it somatic or is visceral? It's somatic, okay? And it is motor, so GSE. How did that work out for you? I hope you were able to figure these things out. No need to memorize, just applying the principles we broke down. If you can work through those examples, then you really understand the concept. The rest is practice. If you're watching this as a separate episode, pause here and redraw the map. Motor side, sensory side. But don't just copy the letters. Write down what each of the components means. In the next part, we will apply this framework to each cranial nerve and then connect it to the nuclei in the brainstem. That is where this table becomes something that you can actually use.